I'm Adam Russell, and this is Adam on Projects. Here, I go beyond buzzwords and jargon and look at how we get real people working and thinking naturally together. This is the foundation of all successful projects. Sad Venn diagram of Agile practice, or how big is the space where Agile hyper-performance is even possible? Just because you want to do Agile or your organization expects you to do Agile doesn't mean that you're going to be able to. There are so many reasons why you might not be able to, or that Agile might not be the right way to go. There are a number of contextual factors that need to be in place for you to even begin your Agile journey. If you don't have these in place, or at least understand where they fit and how you might leverage and improve them, they're going to be a real constraint on your ability to go down the Agile journey. On the other hand, if you have them, they are real enablers. Now, organizations often pay lip service to these factors, but you need to understand what they are, and I'm going to outline those for you in this talk. How well or badly you do Agile is dependent on how solid these foundations are. And a little pop quiz. As you go through this, you think about what is missing from these factors in terms of succeeding in Agile. So let's look at some cumulative factors. What I'm going to do is develop a model, a conceptual model around how these factors interact by overlaying the different spaces within which these factors affect, and showing you how the Agile zone of high performance reduces as we go. So starting point, let's map out theoretically the space within which all goal-based initiatives live. This could be iterative, incremental, adaptive, predictive, organic, a word I use to describe the methodology people use in everyday life. It's how people kind of combine, formal methodologies, what they know, what they can get away with, what they can do with the environment and the resources that they've got. The kind of keep buggering on model. So everything fits within that. So let's put in a space for Agile. Now, Agile, I've kind of maybe about half, maybe it's bigger, maybe it's smaller. I don't know, to be honest, but it's a fairly big chunk these days. We can make it a bit bigger if we like. This represents the space within which people and organizations are doing Agile. And by doing Agile, I mean anybody who's either doing it, being it, living it. The organizations who are going through the Agile journey or who are executing projects based on Agile methodologies and concepts. Now, the first of the factors that we're going to overlay here is about the complexity of our context. So I hope everybody's familiar with the Kinefin model of complexity. If not, look it up. But Kinefin defines a range of contexts which have different characteristics around complexity. And essentially, when we talk about complexity, we're talking about things like whether there's a known cause and effect relationship between something you do and a result that you see, or whether you're able to find consistent answers to questions, or whether you really just even don't know where to start. Or sometimes things are very well understood and it's just a matter of gathering up the information. So in the Kinefin model, we're looking at environments for the successful leveraging of Agile. Agile works better in these environments, which is complex, chaotic, or disordered. Stable environments where things are known. Sure, you can do Agile, you can use Agile, but you're not necessarily getting the best. And sometimes it is better if the information is known to knock it all together and go forward. So there's a choice there, but basically, if you're going to leverage Agile, more chaotic environments are better, or leverage Agile better. Now, the other thing to think about is there's both perceived complexity and there's actual complexity. Now, actual complexity is where it actually really is complex. Perceived complexity is pretty much where we don't know enough to deal with the environment in a stable way. Perhaps there is knowledge that we don't have. And sometimes it's our own approach that makes it more complex. because we're undisciplined, or we don't have the knowledge, or we're not motivated, or a whole bunch of reasons. So in this environment, in this factor, it doesn't matter whether it's perceived or actual, because it's what's presented to individuals as they go about their business. I've put here kind of a big overlap. Could be probably a little bit bigger if we take into account perceived complexity, but you can see there's a pretty big space we've got to work with. The next factor that I want to talk about is the organizational culture, or what Westrom called the organizational topology. Westrom mapped out 3 broad topologies. One he called pathological, another he called bureaucratic, and another he called generative. So pathological organizations are your classic hierarchical power-based organizations that have been around for 200, 300 years, the organizations that most of us have probably worked in, and where Agile, the intent of Agile is to find a way to break that up, or to deprioritize some of these pathological tendencies. At the other end of the spectrum, generative is where the organization wants to develop people. It wants to get the best out of people by enabling people to make their own decisions about what they do. And generally speaking, wants their people to grow and to act as independently as they can. And in the middle, bureaucratic, kind of a mixture of the two. For Agile to work, we really need a generative organization. Bureaucratic, if there's kind of green shoots, if you like, of people, organizations, sub-organizations, individual managers, executives who've got a generative mindset, or at least understand that they want to get more out of their people. The best way to get more out of their people is to enable them rather than to coerce them. So now we've got our intersection of those 3 showing there. The next 2 are personal, individual factors. The first is what I call paradigm 0, and we need looking at a soft paradigm 0. Paradigm 0 is kind of conflation of a whole range of philosophical models and theories going back a couple of thousand years about the way in which people view knowledge, by which the knowledge is developed, and they perceive reality. So at the hard end of paradigm 0, you've got people who believe that there is only one reality, that no matter who goes looking, no matter where that happens, they'll find the same information, they'll see the same thing. Reality is context independent, and knowledge exists. Our job is to find it, and the same question will always get the same answer, no matter where it's asked or by who. At the other end of the spectrum, we've got a soft paradigm 0. Soft paradigm 0 is much more focused on context, and people with a soft paradigm 0 expect that one group of people will have a different reality to another group of people. Now, obviously, there are things that where you'd say that isn't going to happen. We're not talking about gravity, but in terms of their interaction with each other, their interaction with an organizational system, the soft paradigm 0 people believe that collaborative co-creation of the reality is actually how it works, and that the knowledge is context specific, and that different people will find and interpret different things. Knowledge is developed through our senses, which is the empirical kind of model that is often talked about when we talk about agile or adaptive or adapt and inspect. The soft paradigm 0, the ability to have to expect multiple viewpoints and not to expect that there's only one solution to any given problem, is one of the enablers of Agile. Now, paradigm 0 and all the things that make that up are quite hard to change. So in many ways, getting a soft paradigm 0 comes down partly to personal growth, but a lot of it comes down to hiring or team assignment practices. The next personal model is emotional personal development. And this is where we use Keegan's model of emotional development to give us a framework for assessing and defining what will work for Agile. Now, he worked out a 5-stage model, 1 being infants. So we're really talking about, for adults, in our professional with our professional hats on, there's really only three. There's stage 3, stage 4, stage 5. Stage 5 is the people who are completely self-actualized, completely self-aware, and able to deal with all sorts of people. Keegan thought that only 1% of the adult population was a stage 5. Stage 4 is where not only do we understand that different people, other people have their own views and their own ideas about things, but we can understand and step into those other perspectives on the world without feeling threatened or compromising our own individuality or our own sense of self. So that kind of emotional development is fundamental to the kind of hyper collaboration and the addressing change that is going to make Agile work. Stage 3 is where you're aware of other people's different views. It's the first time you start to think beyond just yourself, but it's challenging for you to take those on because you still see your own viewpoint as the prime way that you view and interact with the world. So a high stage 3, mature stage 3, who's kind of on the pathway to stage 4, could be good. But stage 4 is ideal. Now, there's only about 30% of the population, the general population, who are at stage 4, sorry. And so the relative percentage in the kind of population that we deal with in our organizational kind of projects, my guess is it's pretty low. It is just a guess, it's just a personal view. My guess is it's probably a third or less of the people we deal with. So that then constrains the fertile ground, the zone of operation for Agile yet again. The fifth factor is high agency. An agency is an extension of maturity. It's an extension of the way we interact, but it's basically the ability to take action, to make decisions, and be responsible for those. It also includes the ability to self-reflect, which is another aspect of stage 4 of Keegan's model. It also extends to our ability to deal with the limits and constraints that are put on us by organizations and societies and other kinds of power structures. So it's interesting to contrast agency with autonomy. Autonomy has been used in the last, 10 years or so in the Agile narrative as a high order need. It's been used as part of the ingredient to flow and to satisfaction and motivation. The problem, though, is that the general sense of autonomy isn't actually what you think it is. So autonomy is really about power structures granting some other party more or less range of operation. So if I have power and I give you more autonomy, then I'm granting you, I'm delegating you a wider range of action. I'm changing the rules so that you can operate in a different way. Autonomy is fine. That's the boundaries that you're given. It doesn't necessarily guarantee that you're going to use them. So autonomy is only as good as the agency allows people to move within those boundaries. High agency people, moreover, see those boundaries, but they're not necessarily bound by them. So high agency people, high agency teams can operate within their space. They recognize the boundaries, but if necessary, they can go beyond those boundaries. So they have their own, they're bounded by higher order, moral, ethical, and other rules and concepts. But if they feel it's necessary to go beyond the boundaries that have been laid down, then they're able to do that, to take that decision, to take the responsibility, if they feel that the objectives they're given, that their goals, what they want to achieve, needs that. So agency is far more important and brings in a whole range of additional characteristics, as I said, self-regulation, self-reflection, and a lot of the things that the Agile narrative talks about. The second last factor, value. So we talk a lot about value, but unfortunately, most of the dialogue that happens in projects that I see is about delivering value. We use that term a lot, delivering value. It's used in the Agile Manifesto, delivering valuable software. But the reality is we don't deliver value. In our projects, we deliver things to our customers and stakeholders. And those customers and stakeholders do things with them. They're enabled by what we provide them to capture value in their own context. They have their own set of stakeholders and customers and their own value network, and they use what we've given them plus other things to capture value for themselves. And this is the difference between exchange value and use value. Now, if we are not locked into the value capture, the customer's view of value, we run the risk of running down a slippery slope to being focused on purely the technical, purely the solution domain, i.e. the domain where we create these solutions that we deliver to our customers. We need to be in the problem domain, and we need to be anchored in the problem domain to separate ourselves from the tendency to push technology, to push things into the customer, to frame the customer's problems in solution terms. So one example of that is the apocryphal statement that apparently Henry Ford made about, which he didn't, by the way, but he said something like, if I asked customers what they wanted, they would say faster horses. So his brain, when he's saying that, when whoever said that, is stuck in the solution domain. He's stuck in the way in which the technology works, and saying, okay, the customer wants faster horses. They don't necessarily do that. Even if they do that, we need to treat that as an expression of a problem that they have and understand what that problem is. So if people are not able to sit in the customer's shoes, if people are not able to live in the problem domain and deal with the solution domain only as it's required to meet those problems, then you run into direction problems. You run into areas where you think what you want to do is more important than what the customer needs. Now, organizations give lip service to that. It's fundamental. Living in the problem domain is fundamental to successful Agile. In my experience, it's very, very rare. I sit in projects all the time who say that they live by the customer's needs, they're customer obsessed, whatever, and all they talk about is what they want to do, what technology they're going to deliver, and isn't everything going to be fine? Well, I can tell you it's not going to be fine. So this reduces significantly. It's very rare to have people who live in the problem domain and who are able to map privately into the solution domain and do that without engaging everybody else. The last factor is domain expertise. And I'm not talking about Agile domain expertise. I'm not talking about software development expertise, although that's important too. What I'm talking about is a broad range of skills and knowledge that you can use to leverage problem solving in your projects and get you over problems, obstacles, issues that you've got when you're trying to get an outcome. The kind of thing you might have got at uni by doing elective subjects, through travel, through friends, hobbies, personal projects. All these things can give you tools that may be useful in different circumstances and are not covered by the narrow nature of the Agile narrative, or any other narrative for that matter. So if you've heard of the concept of skills shapes, T-shaped, pie-shaped, M-shaped, and so forth, what we need in Agile, or for Agile to work, is comb-shaped people. Comb-shaped skills profile where people have got a wide range of skills and that they're pretty proficient in a number of them. So those 7 factors are what give you the very much reduced zone of Agile hyper-performance. Now, this is not the hyper-performance zone. This is the starting point for your Agile journey. And hyper-performance sits within that zone and is another small subset. So whilst there might be lots of people doing Agile, lots of people on the Agile journey, this is the zone, the only zone that will give you the space and direction to achieve the ultimate objective of Agile, which is hyper-performant teams and delivery. So it might seem sad. I call it the sad Venn diagram because that intersection point, that zone, is so small. But it's not all bad, right? Because as long as you know that these exist, as long as you have got these as part of the signposts on your Agile journey, as long as you have the ability to look at these, understand them, and build them into your Agile journey, you've got a starting point. You don't have to have these all on day one. It would be great if you did, but you don't have to. You at least need to make sure that you are expanding your viewpoint around what's necessary for Agile to work. This is one aspect of what you need to get to Agile hyper-performance. There are other things. You need a goal. You need to know what Agile good looks like. You need to know what hyper-performant Agile actually really looks like, and it isn't probably what you think it is. And you need to have a mechanism that helps you drive forward from where you are today to that goal. It's very unlikely that most of the training and knowledge transfer that I've seen in Agile will actually get you there on its own. These are self-directed activities that leverage Agile concepts, but aren't normally part of how you're taught about Agile. It won't be in a certification. It won't be in anything other than you going out and figuring out how you go. Now, I can explain more about these two things, the goal and the mechanism, in separate talks. At this point, though, let's just kind of do a quick recap of what the success factors are and what the measurements and framework for each of those are. So we've got environment complexity, organizational context, dominant mental paradigm, personal psychological makeup, agency, value and customer construct, and domain expertise. Now you see, I've added in the missing one, the Agile knowledge and skills. It's number 8 on the list. It shouldn't be prioritized above that. And the reality is, by the time you've got those first 7 in place, if you have, your teams are most likely going to be high performing anyway. And now you're talking about a particular kind of high performance. So it's not that Agile has nothing to add. There are definitely things in the Agile narrative that can take a team with these capabilities further, but we've got a long way to go. So I hope you enjoyed that. We'll cover off other aspects of this in other talks. Thank you for listening, and have a great day.